"Sir, I am going to need you to move. This seat is clearly not yours." Arthur Jenkins looked up. He was an old man with kind eyes and lines on his face that told stories of a long life. He wore a simple, clean shirt and trousers. Nothing fancy. He held his boarding pass in a hand that trembled just a little. He had been looking forward to this flight. It was taking him to a special city, for a very special reason. A reason that made his heart feel both proud and a little heavy. "I believe this is my seat," Arthur said, his voice soft but clear. He offered the boarding pass to the flight attendant. Her name tag read Sandra. Sandra snatched the pass from his hand. Her lips were a thin, hard line. She glanced at it, then back at Arthur, her eyes full of doubt. "There must be some mistake," she said loudly. Other passengers were starting to turn their heads. Economy class is further back. Arthur felt a flush creep up his neck. He didn't like being the center of attention. "Not like this. My pass says seat 12A, he repeated, trying to keep his voice steady. "I checked it carefully." Sandra scoffed. A small, ugly sound. "These passes can be faked, you know, or people get confused. This is a preferred seating area. Are you sure you paid for this?" Arthur took a slow breath. He had paid for it, with money he had saved, because this trip was important. He had served his country for over 30 years. He had seen things, done things, lost friends. He wasn't used to being treated like a liar, not over a plane seat. "I assure you, madam," he said, his politeness a shield, "everything is in order." "Well, I don't think so," Sandra snapped. Her voice was getting sharper. "I deal with people trying to sneak into better seats all the time. You people always think you can get away with it." You people. Those words stung. What did she mean by you people? Old people, people who dressed simply. If you've ever been judged unfairly, type "I know" in the comments below. Arthur felt a familiar weariness settle over him. He had faced down much worse than a rude flight attendant. He had faced enemies who wanted to do much more than just embarrass him. He kept his composure. It was a habit learned over many hard years. "Perhaps you could check with your system," Arthur suggested quietly. "My name is Arthur Jenkins." Sandra tapped her foot. "The system is busy. I need this seat cleared. There's a passenger waiting who has actually paid for it." "Now, are you going to move, or do I have to make this a bigger issue?" She sounded like she would enjoy making it a bigger issue. Arthur looked down at his hands. They were old hands, but they had been strong. They had held tools of war and tools of peace. They had comforted the dying and celebrated with the living. He felt a deep sadness. Was this what his service had come to? To be questioned and shamed in public? He thought about just getting up and moving, finding a seat in the back, avoiding a scene, but then something inside him, a small stubborn spark, flared up. No, he had done nothing wrong. He was tired of being pushed around, of being invisible. He remembered a promise. A long time ago, a young airman he had taken under his wing, someone he had mentored and helped through tough times. That young man was now a senior pilot. "Artie," he had said, "if you ever need anything, anything at all, especially on one of our flights, you ask for Captain Dave Miller. Promise me." Arthur had never thought he would use that promise. He wasn't one to ask for favors. But this felt different. This was about respect. "Actually," Arthur said, his voice still quiet but firm now, "I would like to speak with the captain, please." Sandra's eyes widened, then narrowed. "The captain? He's busy preparing for takeoff. He doesn't have time for seat disputes. I am in charge here." "I understand he is busy," Arthur said, "but I believe he would want to be informed about this situation. Please, just tell him Arthur Jenkins would like a word." Sandra looked like she wanted to argue more. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Maybe something in Arthur's steady gaze made her hesitate. With a loud huff, she turned on her heel. "Fine, but don't expect him to take your side," she muttered as she stalked towards the front of the plane, towards the cockpit. A few moments passed. Arthur sat there, feeling the stares of the other passengers. Some looked annoyed, some curious, a few looked sympathetic. He just looked straight ahead, waiting. He felt calm now. He had made his decision. What do you think will happen next? Will the captain listen? Suddenly, the cockpit door opened, but it wasn't just Sandra who came out. Behind her stood a tall man in a crisp pilot's uniform, his cap tucked under his arm. He had an air of command about him. This was Captain Dave Miller. Sandra pointed a finger towards Arthur. "That's the man, Captain. He's refusing to move from a seat he hasn't paid for and demanding to see you." Her voice was full of accusation. Captain Miller looked past Sandra. His eyes scanned the seats, and then they landed on Arthur. For a second, his professional expression didn't change. Then, a flicker, recognition. His eyes widened. A smile, a real one, spread across his face. "Artie?" Captain Miller said, his voice warm and surprised. He moved forward quickly, ignoring Sandra completely. "Arthur Jenkins, is that really you?" Sandra froze. Her mouth fell open a little. Her face, so full of angry confidence just moments before, now looked confused and a little scared. Arthur smiled back. "Hello, Dave. It's been a long time." Captain Miller reached Arthur's seat. He didn't offer a handshake. Instead, he stood straight and gave Arthur a short, sharp, respectful nod. The kind one soldier gives another. "Sir," he said, his voice full of respect, "it's an honor to have you on my flight." The other passengers were silent now, watching, listening. Sandra looked like she had seen a ghost. Her face was pale. "What seems to be the trouble here, Artie?" Captain Miller asked, his eyes turning briefly towards Sandra, then back to Arthur with concern. Arthur just gestured with his hand. "Your flight attendant, Miss Sandra, seems to believe I am in the wrong seat. She suggested I had not paid for it." He said it simply, no anger. Just facts. Captain Miller's smile vanished. He looked at Sandra. His voice was no longer warm. It was ice. "Miss Sandra," he said, "is this true? Did you accuse Mr. Jenkins of not paying for his seat?" Sandra stammered. "Well, I just thought, She couldn't form a sentence. "You thought what?" Captain Miller's voice was low, but everyone could hear it. "Did you check his boarding pass properly? Did you check our passenger manifest?" I was about to," Sandra mumbled, looking at the floor. "Mr. Arthur Jenkins," Captain Miller announced, his voice now carrying through the quiet cabin, "is not just any passenger. This man is a decorated veteran. He served this country with honor and distinction for over 3 decades. He is a hero." He paused, letting his words sink in. "He is also," Captain Miller continued, his gaze still fixed on Sandra, "a personal friend, and he can sit in any seat he damn well pleases on my aircraft. Is that understood?" Sandra nodded quickly, her face burning red. "Yes, Captain. Understood, Captain." "Good." Captain Miller then turned back to Arthur, his expression softening immediately. "Artie, I am so deeply sorry for this. This is not how our airline operates. This is not how we treat our esteemed passengers, especially not our veterans. If you believe veterans deserve our utmost respect, type owner below." He then addressed Sandra again. "You will apologize to Mr. Jenkins, immediately and sincerely." Sandra looked up at Arthur. Her eyes were wide. She looked small now. "Mr. Jenkins," she whispered, I am very sorry. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Please forgive me." Arthur looked at her. He saw not just a rude employee, but a young woman who had made a big error in judgment and was now facing the consequences. He nodded slowly. "Apology accepted," he said quietly. He didn't want her to suffer more than necessary. Justice had been served. Captain Miller wasn't quite finished. "Miss Sandra, I'll be speaking with you and your supervisor after we land. This kind of behavior is unacceptable." He then smiled at Arthur. "Artie, would you do me the honor of joining me in first class? We have an empty seat, and I'd love to catch up if you're up for it before we get too busy." Arthur felt a warmth spread through him. "Dave, that's very kind. But this seat is just fine. Knowing I have your respect is more than enough." The captain nodded. "As you wish, sir. But please, let us know if there is anything at all you need." "Anything." He gave Sandra one last hard look, then addressed the other passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay. We'll be underway shortly. And thank you for your patience." He then leaned down to Arthur. "Are you heading to the reunion in DC, Artie?" Arthur nodded. "And a small ceremony they're having for some of us old-timers." Captain Miller grinned. "I thought so. Well, fly with pride, sir. You've earned it 1,000 times over." With a final nod, he returned to the cockpit. For the rest of the flight, Arthur was treated with quiet respect by the other flight attendants. Sandra avoided his gaze, but she did her job professionally. Other passengers smiled at him. One even leaned over and whispered, "Thank you for your service." Arthur Jenkins arrived in the city, ready for his special event. He felt a quiet sense of peace. He hadn't asked for special treatment, he had only asked for fairness. And sometimes, that's all a quiet hero needs. The story of what happened on that flight spread through the airline. New training modules were put in place about respecting all passengers, with a special emphasis on veterans. Sandra, after a serious review, was given retraining and a final warning. She learned a hard lesson that day. You can't judge a book by its cover. And you certainly can't judge a hero by the simplicity of his clothes. Arthur remained humble. He never bragged about what happened, but he was glad that a moment of unfairness had turned into a lesson for others. The real lesson here is about respect. Respect for everyone, no matter how they look or who you think they are, and a special measure of respect for those who have sacrificed for others. If you believe in treating everyone with kindness and fairness, please subscribe to our channel for more stories like this. Remember, a little respect goes a long way, and sometimes, the quietest people carry the biggest stories.